Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm like talking crap to you, and I can't even speak English, so that was good.
Right. Yeah, well, we
very, very professional. But anyway, welcome to another Overreaction Sunday. We couldn't link up last week. We tried to, but it was what was that game on a Wednesday or a Thursday? It just fell in a weird time of the week with the holiday. Dillon was coming back from the Rose Bowl. We are joined by I'm Drew Sample, and I'm my co-host here, Mr. Andy Evans, and then also our on-again, pretty much semi-regular guest from the Delaware Gazette, fellow beat cover of the Buckeyes, Mr. Dillon Davis, with his pimpin' Rose Bowl hat on. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So he got to go to the Rose Bowl. We wanted to get you on to talk about the experience. We got a couple games and then another game to preview. So let's get into it. So I guess I haven't talked to you guys since the Tennessee game. What has been, Dillon? So what has been your kind of takeaway? I mean, you got to go to the Rose Bowl. So what was your takeaway from that game and then the Cotton Bowl as well?
Yeah, I expected Ohio State to beat Tennessee, and I expected Ohio State to go out and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl. Now, I certainly didn't expect that to unfold the way that it did. But obviously, Ohio State became a wagon, a runaway freight train, and I was interested to see how that would continue on Friday. And now it didn't, quite continue in that manner. But frankly, I was really excited to see Ohio State win the game the way they did on Friday, because after those first 2 weeks, the way they won that game, it was about time for Ohio State to be tested and maybe remind them that you guys are really good, but there are other good football teams out there, and it's good to have Ohio State kind of build this callus to say, like, even if it's not easy going in this national title game, even if it's not easy, you can still go find a way to win this game. So it's just been a little bit of everything for Ohio State in this run so far. And frankly, there's nothing that they should take them by surprise or catch them off guard now in this national title game. I mean, they should be ready for just about anything, which is bad news for Notre Dame.
Yeah, Andy, what about you? What have your thoughts been with the Oregon game, and the Texas game?
Yeah, let's face it. Dillon just said it. For them to have gone out and to have absolutely dominated at the beginning, get that insanely fast start, that was something I was absolutely not expecting, considering some of the slow starts that they've had throughout the season. But then we see against Tennessee, fast start. Oregon, fast start. They kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit there in the Rose Bowl, but when you're up 34-0 in the first half, late in the first half, and then, of course, they let that touchdown at the end of the first half. Then Oregon comes back out to begin the second half. They score. You're kind of thinking, And then as soon as that score happened, Oregon's second score, Ohio State responded. And that was their last touchdown of the game, but they were able to hold off a pretty powerful Oregon offense. And the job they did against Dillon Gabriel was just insane. 8 sacks. I mean, come on. They played a great contain. Their coverage was great. They didn't let Oregon's fast receivers get over the top like they did in the first game. Jim Knowles with just a completely reversal game plan. Same with Chip Kelly. I mean, it was just a thing of beauty. Then let's get to the Cotton Bowl in Texas. And like Dillon said, that was a great way for them to get tested. And I felt like Ohio State truly was the better team and was going to win. But just out of pessimism and superstition, I picked Texas to win. Dillon even told me, for God's sakes, please pick Texas to win. Well, you got your wish, Dillon. I picked Texas to win, and Ohio State came out on top. So, but that was a dogfight. And a couple of buddies kept talking about how this was a poor offensive game plan by Ohio State. And, well, when you're double and almost triple covering Jeremiah Smith the entire game, you're going to have to look elsewhere. And that's what Will Howard had to do. And Will Howard early on was throwing some questionable passes in some tight windows. And at times I felt like he got lucky. Now, he ended up throwing a pick. Didn't necessarily come back to bite them, if you will. But this was still, to my vantage point, was a great chess match between two great defensive coordinators. And let's face it, Texas, first and goal at the 1, late in the game, they're about to tie it up. But that goal line stand could go down as one of the greatest goal line stands in OSU history, aside from maybe that 0-2 goal line stand against Miami in double overtime in the national championship game, where they ended up stopping a prolific Miami offense from scoring and ultimately won the Natty. But Jack Sawyer, yeah, come on, forget about it, right? Our boy Jack picked North, man. Dude, that was just unbelievable to see. And the way that they hammered the nail in Texas's coffin, that could go down in and of itself as one of the greatest plays in OSU history. But like Dillon said, they got a test. And that was good to see Ohio State get a test. And they passed the test. And so now here we are, about to play the despised Fighting Irish for all the marbles.
Yeah, I was very happy. I was a little concerned that they weren't getting off with the momentum. It seemed like they were. It's hard to keep momentum going the way they did. The interesting thing, that something you kind of alluded to, is like they didn't really win the middle 8 in the Tennessee or Oregon game, but in the Texas game they did. And I think that was really important. There was a lot of times I would see Travion Henderson open in the flat. It's like, get him the ball. That dude has space. If he has space, he makes magic happen. And I was happy to see it the second half that he had a chance to kind of atone for what he knew was a bonehead penalty, and just make a huge play which I didn't realize, because I've been saying Texas is overrated all year, which that defense really is pretty good. And that was that was the longest passing touchdown they'd given up all season. That was pretty awesome. It was great momentum in the first half. And then to start the second, I thought they did a pretty good job. Did they throw the pick at the going down on that first drive? They were moving the ball well. Then he threw that pick, and it was like, yeah. I did start to get a little bit nervous, and I was like thinking we're gonna lose. Like just being an Ohio State fan. If things are great, the world's amazing. If things are bad, it's like the world's gonna end. But I was pretty impressed. And then finishing strong. The Jack Sawyer play was pretty incredible. I think going into it, though, I think it is pretty interesting that we have the two teams that probably praise God the most in pressers that I've seen out of any team. So that's pretty funny. We got the public school God Bowl versus the private God Bowl in the Midwest here. And we got two white dude quarterbacks that look like they could be cousins. It's just Will Howard's a little bit bigger. I think it's going to be interesting. I think Al Golden, though, I think that OSU fans should be ready. That dude seems to be like having a real resurrection of his career. He's a very good defensive coordinator. And I think that OSU is a lot more talented, but Notre Dame's still winning games. And I think that's kind of like the biggest takeaway I've gotten out of watching Notre Dame in the playoffs is, it's interesting to see Notre Dame's beat two Big Ten teams and then the SEC champion. Ohio State beat two SEC teams and the Big Ten champion, and here we are in the final. So I'm thinking it could go a couple ways. I could definitely see Ohio State getting some momentum, but I don't think Buckeye fans should be sleeping on the Notre Dame defense. Dillon, what do you think about this preview with the Notre Dame game, and how do you think this game's going to go down?
I mean, it's a good defense, no question about it. Al Golden has been playing really well. Obviously, Marcus Freeman has a hand in that as well, given his background. It's a good defense as well. I think it's a bad matchup, though, for Notre Dame, even if, being a good defense. Look, Notre Dame's a heavy man team. They run a ton of man coverage. I doubt that they're going to change a whole lot about the way they, played all year and what got them to this point. So, do I think Notre Dame has the dogs in the secondary like Texas does to run? With some of these guys, no. And do I think that Notre Dame's going to adopt Texas's plan to slow down the Ohio State passing game by just keeping two guys over the top of everybody and keeping two guys on top of Jeremiah at all times. No, I don't think they're going to. So I think that poses a problem if Notre Dame's defensive line can't wreck the game and Ohio State can give Will Howard time to make these throws again. I think you might be in for more of a up and down the field offensive performance from Ohio State that we saw in the Tennessee and Oregon games, and then more so than what we saw in that Texas game. Look, I think Ohio State only needs to score 20, 24 points to win the football game because I would be very, very disappointed, barring, bad turnovers, if Notre Dame scores more than 17 points in that game because that offense is just what it is. And if Ohio State doesn't let Jeremiah Love get going, even if Jeremiah Love runs for his 100 yards on, if it's at least, just 4 yards per carry and nothing more, no chunk yardage, I don't know how Notre Dame sustains anything to score 20 plus points. So, I think Notre Dame has its hands cut out for him big time. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to predict a blowout, but I would say that I would, if you ask me what's more likely to happen, Ohio State winning this game by 14 plus or Notre Dame winning the game, I think it's more likely Ohio State wins the game by 14 plus than Notre Dame winning the football game. So
now Notre Dame is actually, as of yesterday, I think I texted you guys that stat, and it could be a lot of people are saying it's just because Notre Dame's betting faster, but I think yesterday when I looked, 60% of the bettors on BetMGM were on the money line for Notre Dame.
I mean, it's at that value. I get it. It's almost like why wouldn't you be for the national title game to get on FanDuel Notre Dame's plus 330 in a national title game? You get a team at plus 330. Like, why wouldn't you throw some dollars on that? So I get that, but also Vegas isn't in the business of losing money, and it's at plus 330 for a reason. So
yeah, Andy, what are your thoughts with the upcoming Notre Dame game?
Yeah, It seems to me like this Notre Dame team is winning on just sheer determination, guts, grit. We saw what happened in that Georgia game. They were down late, but then they get a turnover, then they score, then they come out and begin the second half with a kickoff return. It's like Marcus Freeman is a great motivator and gets these guys just mentally psyched up and gives them an edge mentally. And they're a good football team, but it feels like Ohio State is just more dominant, even with that Texas game. And I know some people out there might think, well, they didn't look very dominant against Texas. Once again, Texas was about to score a game-time touchdown late, and then the defense came through and really made that score look kind of deceiving. A 2-touchdown win when it was going to be a tie game, and it, the tide turned in the snap of a finger. But nonetheless, it seems like right now Ohio State is winning on just motivation and talent level, because Ryan Day indeed has done a phenomenal job up to this point in getting this team motivated. And Notre Dame, I think, luck of the Irish, let me just say this because of, once again, my pessimism, my superstition. I'm not going to sit here and say I think Ohio State is clearly the better team and is going to go out there and beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame doesn't stand a chance. None of that, because this is the national championship game, and Marcus Freeman is going to have his boys playing at a high level. And let's not forget this too, just a weird little caveat. This is a rematch from the last 2 years where Ohio State beat Notre Dame in 2022 and 2023. So I would love to ask Marcus Freeman here at 11 o'clock. We've got a Zoom presser with him at 11 and then Ryan Day at 12 o'clock. I would love to ask Marcus Freeman, and he'd probably deny it, but I would love to ask him if he is going to use that as motivation to get his guys ready. The fact that they just lost the last 2 years to Ohio State. But let me just say, I really feel like Ohio State matches up very, very well against Notre Dame. To Dillon's point, their defense is a good defense, but do they match up really with Ohio State's receivers? And Notre Dame's offense, passing the ball, they ain't too great. They're like 102nd in the country passing offense. And Riley Leonard's a good quarterback, and he's kind of a Dillon Gabriel-esque where he can use his legs to move around. So Ohio State might have to use some contain to keep him in the pocket and force him either into some bad throws or get to him like they did Dillon Gabriel. But Notre Dame's offense is obviously predicated upon the run, as Dillon just said, and Love is a great running back. But Ohio State don't like to give up many yards on the ground. So Notre Dame has got their work cut out for them for sure. But I think the Buckeyes do too, just because Marcus Freeman is going to have his guys highly motivated, highly inspired, and ready to play.
Yeah, I think the interesting matchups for me is going to be our defensive line with their offensive line. Much like our offensive line, their offensive line is very beat up. I think they're on like their third left tackle. And it's a similar situation where a guy had to change positions to play left tackle, and they just stepped up and did it in that game against Penn State, which was pretty impressive. Jeremiah Love's still pretty beat up, even though he jumped over a Penn State player. But as we saw, like with that good edge rusher from Penn State, they were very effective at putting pressure on Notre Dame and Riley Leonard, and he did not look very good under pressure, but he did still play well enough to win the game. And then I just see, our defensive line matching up very well against their offensive line. And then on the same side of the ball, on the opposite side of the ball, their defensive line, their best pass rusher got injured after the very first game against Indiana, did not play against Georgia. So with that, just talent, the way it matches up, it does look like it could get, if OSU can go out there and get some points early and just not make stupid penalties and do little things that will help Notre Dame slow down the pace of the game, which is going to be what Marcus Freeman is going to want to do. I'm with Dillon, but Andy, you really need to do us a favor and pick Notre Dame.
Let me just say that I feel the Buckeyes once again match up very well, but I don't know. We'll leave that till the end of the podcast as to who we're picking by what amount. But yeah, we'll leave that for here in a few minutes.
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with you, Andy. You just look like you're looking off into space. Dylan, is that what you're seeing too?
Yeah.
But, I guess so.
It looks like one of those photos where he's purposely trying not to look at the photo, but he told him, "Hey, take this photo."
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the way I'm seeing it going. I guess anything else, I guess we'll see as we get closer. It's going to be 8 days away. Dylan, can you still hear me all right? I'm getting some weird feedback. Okay, cool. Might just be Andy's end. I'm in agreement with you, Dylan. I think that, when it comes to the Buckeyes, that's what they need to do. Anything else standing out? Anything else? I know you guys probably want to get prepped for this presser soon. I'm not trying to make this a super quick podcast.
You guys just said it. A fast start. That is what is needed for Ohio State. They need to jump on Notre Dame early, like they did Oregon, like they did Tennessee. Come out, make a statement, get on Notre Dame fast. If they can do that, Notre Dame is in trouble. However, if Notre Dame's grit, guts, determination are keeping them in the ball game, then it could be a long one. It could be it could be another kind of Texas style game. But I'll just go ahead and throw it out there now, since it sounds like we're almost ready to wrap it up. I am going to take the Irish on the grit, the guts, the determination. Marcus Freeman is going to have these guys ready for Rebenga against the Buckeyes for the last 2 seasons. And they ultimately are going to pull off the win because they have not beaten Ohio State guys since 1936. It has been almost 90 years since the Irish have gotten a win over Ohio State. And what better way to redeem yourselves after all of these losses to Ohio State? since 1936 than to get a win in the national championship. Give me the Irish by a final score of 24-21.
Yeah, no part of you actually believes that,
but it was necessary. Don't you agree?
Right,
It was
right.
necessary.
I'll take Ohio State. I haven't really thought of a score. I'll take Ohio State 34-17. Give me
you think they cover the spread?
Oh yeah. I'll be hammering the Ohio State. I think it's right now it's -9.5. So I'll hammer that. Anything below 10 points, I'll hammer that for Ohio State for sure. I just don't see. I don't. The number of things, the margin for error for Notre Dame, the number of things that has to go right for them to have a chance to win this football game. It would seem insurmountable against Ohio State's level of talent. So, barring turnovers, obviously, which is a great equalizer and can keep any football team in a game if you turn the football over. Barring turnovers, I don't see how Notre Dame even stays above water, stays afloat in this game for 2 or 3 quarters. To be honest with you, and that's it's not even being a homer, because I struggle for anybody to look at this game and objectively say, like, this is how Notre Dame wins the football game, much less stays competitive in the football game. Their one, I guess, advantage, if you will, is their defensive line. But we just saw Texas, walk into a game, and that would be their big advantage as well. And while at times it was kind of herky-jerky offensively for Ohio State's offensive line wasn't overwhelmed by Texas's defensive line. I mean, Texas' defensive line got theirs, and they will, because they have, they have really good talent. And Notre Dame will, get theirs every once in a while defensively up front. But just to sustain that over 4 quarters of football and stay competitive, I don't understand how that happens unless Ohio State gives them the football to help them do that.
Yeah, I think winning the middle eight is going to be a big thing for Ohio State they have to win the middle part of the football game. I think Marcus Freeman kind of makes his magic there. Like, that's what keeps them in games. I mean, I saw it against Georgia, saw it against Penn State too, with Angeli coming in and actually being able to move the ball well, which I wonder if they're going to do that at all. Yeah, I'm on the same page. I was tempted yesterday to think about picking the spread, but it was still kind of like post-mortem of that game and thinking about all those matchups and actually how talented Texas actually is, and versus Notre Dame, which is, a lot more heart than talent. But there's still you can't sleep on them. So I'm leaning that way too. I think I'll probably have a better thing, but right now I'm definitely leaning at least 2 touchdown victory. You guys want to talk about? I guess I was trying to get done pretty quick, so I know we got the press. You guys want to talk about the transfer portal at all? And right now, the Wild Wild West. I mean, Carson Beck just reportedly got like $4 million to go play at Miami. But right now, apparently,
Carson Beck.
Most of this is going to end in April with the revenue sharing decision, and so it's going to have kind of a salary cap. Do you guys expect Ohio State to make any moves after this game? Because I don't think we're going to be doing anything until the title's up. I saw we did lose like our 5th string running back to the portal.
Yeah, Damon Wilson's on campus, or at least was this weekend, and the dead period starts next week. So, if you do the math on that, it would seem that Damon Wilson taking a visit to Ohio State just before the dead period, he's obviously not taking visits after then, and he needs to find a home. So I think you can go ahead and safely assume Damon Wilson's coming to Ohio State, which is a huge get for them along the defensive line with the added depth and a guy that they badly wanted in the recruiting class 2 years ago as a 5-star recruit. They lost out on him to Georgia. So, but they finally circled back and get him. So that's a big get. He had 3 sacks for Georgia this year. I'm assuming that he's going to ultimately commit. I haven't heard anything, official, but it seemed like the writing would be on the wall there. That's a big get for Ohio State as a guy who can play immediately next year and bring some depth. And they're going to need to with the losses they have. So that's a good one. I don't know what will follow after that. Ohio State's class is pretty much wrapped up. Maybe they add another piece or two. But outside of Damon Wilson, it's probably mostly done. And it's been a good one. It's been a good class for Ohio State. They've addressed some real needs, and they've done well in that regard.
Andy, get the offensive lineman, too, out of Minnesota, Paris Johnson's cousin. a Cincinnati kid, went to Minnesota, one of their better offensive linemen, and now he's coming back home, if you will, to Ohio State. That was a pretty big get, especially since, they're supposedly going to lose Zen Mahalski, which, Zen Mahalski, not a huge loss, if you will, but they're also losing Donovan Jackson, obviously, just to eligibility. And yeah, they're going to have to shore up, that tackle spot. So getting him, that was a good get too. I thought that was a good transfer in.
So how many guys are going to be going to the draft? Pretty much a majority of the defense. A lot of our offensive line are going to be done. Travion Henderson. Is Judkins, is he going to the draft probably?
Yeah, I would assume.
And then Ibuka, and then we'll have Tate. And then Will Howard too. We want to have Will Howard.
Tate will be back.
What's that? Tate will be back. So we'll have Tate and Smith next year. It's interesting, it seems. Do you think I've had somebody say that they were kind of disappointed with our recruiting class, and I was kind of perplexed, but it's like I feel like Deion Sanders, I've heard talk about it, and some other coaches too, that like who you're getting from high school is probably you're only looking for about half of what you normally would, and then you go to the other half to the transfer portal. It seems like OSU's kind of figured out that mesh of like having a group of guys that have been like true believers through the whole process of being at Ohio State and getting in enough mercenaries that can buy in or transfers.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I heard those comments from Deion whenever he said them as well, and it's true. Ryan Day has spoken a little bit on that as well, like he did on signing day, as a matter of fact, in terms of being disappointed with the recruiting class. Other than the offensive line recruiting, which is flat out unacceptable, but I've been saying this for 3 years now, that this problem that, Ohio State's had to navigate on the offensive line this year was, it's been 3 or 4 years in the making. It didn't just pop up this year. So, but beyond the offensive line recruiting, I don't know how you could be disappointed with Ohio State's recruiting class, but I also know Ohio State fans will find a way to be disappointed with, anything if it's not pure perfection. So.
For sure. Well, hey guys, we'll get it wrapped up here. Dillon, what are you writing about this week? What's your plan of writing?
We'll see what the coaches say today. I don't have anything specific to write. I'll probably write a couple of general, previews for the national title game, and then wait until media day on Saturday to figure out, what feature I would want to write on Sunday going into Monday. Nothing specific. I did a lot of writing ahead of and after the Rose Bowl. So I don't have anything, that specifically that I want to write, but looking forward to seeing what the coaches say today and getting started on national championship game coverage.
Andy, how about you?
Yeah, I'd like to, once again, if I'm able to ask Marcus Freeman, I'm going to say, hey, are you going to use these last 2 years as some sort of motivation for your team, and see what he has to say on that? Because it kind of seems like Ohio State was on their own little revenge tour of sorts these first 3 games, right? The only game they had ever played against Tennessee going into the first round of the playoff, they had lost, the 96 Citrus Bowl. Well, they got revenge on that. Oregon, the last 2 games they had played against the Ducks, they lost, and, including obviously this middle of this season. They got revenge for that. Texas, they technically had lost the last time that they had played the Longhorns, which was in the 2009 Fiesta Bowl, and they were 1-2 overall against them. And guess what? They got revenge for that loss 16 years ago. Now, is that really the case? I mean, obviously the Oregon game, yeah, we could say that was quote-unquote revenge. Tennessee and Texas, no. I mean, there was no revenge factor.
SEC teams, though.
But SEC team. I still don't consider Texas an SEC team. They're not SEC as far as I'm concerned. 1 year in the league, that doesn't make you a legit SEC team. Yeah, I know by designation they are. But at any rate, but this does kind of feel like it could be a motivational factor for Ohio State having beaten Notre Dame the last 2 seasons. I think that Marcus Freeman, if he says he's probably not going to admit it, he's probably going to say absolutely not. We're not going to approach it that way. We're, using everything as a motivational factor, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be some sort of coach speak. But behind closed doors, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for what he says to his guys to motivate them here throughout the next week and a half or 8 days, technically 9, whatever. It's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say. That's kind of going to be one of my vantage points as far as writing. But like Dillon said, hear what the coaches have to say too, and kind of parlay off of that.
And then finally, will this be the most highly rated national championship game ever, Dillon?
Yeah, you're already seeing, the kind of the fallout, if you will, of this matchup in the ticket sales right now. It's the most expensive national championship ticket you've ever seen, and obviously, as somebody who's bought a ton of tickets through the years, like, yeah, I understand that will come down a little bit as we get closer to game week or a game day. But where it's starting at, it seems like it'll probably stay the most expensive national championship game ticket ever. And at the get-in prices upwards of $2,000, $2,300 to this game. And it makes sense because of these fan bases. These are two of the biggest fan bases in college sports, if not the biggest. Maybe I could think of maybe Texas's fan base. Other than that, probably the two biggest fan bases in the country, and certainly they're not going to miss out on this opportunity. So yeah, the ratings are going to be through the roof. Again, just because of those fan bases on top of everybody else who college football fans want to watch. Is the number of hate watches that are going to be happening on Monday for these two teams is just going to be just outrageous. So yeah, this is going to do some big time numbers. I would expect it to shatter records.
Yeah, anytime Ohio State's involved with a game, I mean, look at the ratings they pull in. What was it? The Michigan game? Was it this year or last year? Was like
12,
for Fox? Yeah, was the highest rated game that they had all season long. Now you're talking about Ohio State in the national championship and playing Notre Dame of all teams. To Dillon's point, they're like basically America's team, right? Because any Catholic out there is going to love Notre Dame, and Catholics are all over the friggin' place.
As a raised Catholic, I was never a fan of Notre Dame. I was always
okay, so you might be an outlier.
But I'm not Irish Catholic, so I think it's more like an Irish Catholic thing.
So, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of like they're like the Cowboys, America's team. It's like no matter where you go, there's going to be a Cowboys fan. That might not be as true today as it was back several years ago, but Notre Dame, I do feel like, is kind of America's team and Ohio State's pretty damn close, too. If not maybe more so than Notre Dame. But yeah, you're talking about two of the biggest, like Dillon just said, two of the biggest fan bases in the country. And now they're playing each other for the national championship. Yeah, this is going to be absolutely berserk as far as the ratings go.
And finally, I know I keep saying and finally, but I keep looking at the time like, wow, we got done quick. I didn't ramble at all. How embarrassed is Brian Kelly? He left because he said he didn't have the resources to win. Angry Notre Dame alum, mainly Brady Quinn. I heard him talking about it this week. Created the NIL collective to pretty much say fuck you to Brian Kelly, and that like you do have the resources, you just cut and ran because you couldn't get it done. So how embarrassed do you think Brian Kelly is, or what kind of egg on his face because he has not had? How do you have Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors and not even make it to like a big bowl game?
Yeah, that guy's such an asshat, but that's nothing new. We knew that, even before he made the decision to go down to Baton Rouge and leave Notre Dame. So I'm not sure he's self-aware enough to feel like an idiot or be embarrassed by it at all. I'm sure that, in his own head, the mental gymnastics he does to make sure that he can justify the move he made. I'm sure he still feels like he made the right decision. But
with his fake Southern accent, by the way.
Right. Yeah. I'm never going to wish success on Notre Dame, but I can at least enjoy the humor and watching, Brian Kelly just screw himself over like that, because I think we can all agree that screw Brian Kelly because that guy sucks. So that's been fun to watch, in the sense that he tucked tail and ran down there thinking that it's the classic saying that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And it wasn't. To the point about playing in the SEC, Andy, real quick, I want to go back to something you said about Texas. Bet your ass that if Texas would have beat Ohio State, SEC fans would have been thumping their chest. So, and in that sense, I agree with you in that, it's hard to look at them as an SEC team. It's going to take a little while to get used to. But in terms of beating the SEC, you're damn right that I'll take that feather in the cap, because we would have heard about it from SEC fans. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm in an SEC Facebook fan page just merely for the sake of getting in and seeing what some of these people have to say. And, someone, oh, man, Ohio State, talking about the Ohio State-Texas game. They shouldn't have let us in. And it was right when Texas tied up the game 14-all.
Right.
And so I completely agree. SEC fans would have been like, yeah, SEC, Texas, it's almost like, the Big Ten being able to brag about Oregon, it's like, okay, yeah.
I was more embarrassed that the Oregon won as a Big Ten guy. Like,
right.
You let an invader come in and win.
Right. But, here's the thing. Like you just said, Dillon, I'm not a Notre Dame fan by any means. In fact, they're probably the second most despised school, in my opinion, as far as Ohio State rivals are concerned. But if Ohio State were to lose, which of course I said they would, at least they're losing to an Ohio guy and a former Ohio State player who coached at Ohio State under Jim Tressel and cut his teeth with the great Jimmy T.
And then went to
so they're going to lose to Notre Dame, and they're, going to lose to any coach. It's a guy like Marcus Freeman, who, once again, Ohio guy, former Ohio State player, former Ohio State coach. And, I know he made the comments when he first took the Notre Dame job about this is where I should have come in the first place, blah, blah, blah. And then he walked him back. I mean, we all kind of know what he meant. He kind of had to say what he had to say. He loves Ohio State. He loves Jim Tressel. He is an Ohio guy. He'd be the first black coach to ever win a national championship. That'd be awesome. He's, of course, the first black coach to ever coach in a national championship game. So if they're going to lose, at least they're losing to a guy like Marcus Freeman, who has come in there and proven that, Brian Kelly, you're an idiot. You are no motivator. I'm a motivator. I'm the man. Watch what I do with the guys that you gave up on. I'm going to have them sitting pretty here in a couple of years. And here we are. So tip of the cap to Marcus Freeman. As an Ohioan, as an Ohio State guy, you have to be proud of the job that Marcus Freeman has done. So
awesome.
There you have
it. He'd also be the first Asian coach, according to him, but he's more focused on the work he's putting in, which I like.
And he is.
They were making a big deal about it. I didn't even realize James Franklin was mixed. I had no idea. I just thought he was like a tan white dude, to be honest. He doesn't have any hair. I just thought he was a coach. Like, I didn't really care. So I think, I don't know. It's ESPN loves to bring that up, but and both coaches are like, well, we work really hard.
Right.
And if anything, that's more of the testament to Marcus Freeman than any sort of race, color, creed, whatever. The fact that, like I said, he has put Brian Kelly in his place, proving that he can win with guys that Brian Kelly had. Because this is Freeman's third year, right?
Yeah.
Third year, yeah. So
he's had some pretty
there are
shitty
still
losses.
Some Brian Kelly leftovers that Marcus Freeman is dealing with, and that he motivated enough to get them to the spot that they're in. So yeah, Brian Kelly, and like you said, Dillon, if you have the awareness or not, Brian Kelly, and I would be remiss that Brian Kelly cannot be that arrogant to look and see what he's done at LSU since leaving Notre Dame and what Notre Dame has done since he left, and think, maybe it is me. Maybe I am the problem here. Because it's not like LSU has lit the world on fire since he's been there. They had Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner. Okay, cool. But they've lost 2 or 3 games every year. I mean, that's kind of been the norm since they appeared in the national championship in 2019 and just completely blew the doors off of everybody that season. And Brian Kelly, you were not the coach that year. So
no, and they were pretty bad the 2 years after. And then at Oregonian, he hit on some guy's pregnant wife who was a high up at LSU, and
haven't heard that story.
It was pretty embarrassing and funny. But anyway, hey, we're gonna wrap it up here. Everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Follow us on X. I'm at Drew Sample. It is Andy's Wired. You can also follow at Columbus_Wired, and then Dylan Davis is at. I don't know yours by heart yet, Dylan. It's like I'll remember your phone number.
Dylan Davis 56, baby.
Dylan Davis 56 at X. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will actually have another episode before the game next Sunday. So we'll talk to you guys then.